Hi. So I finished reading Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is a novel by Brandon Sanderson. It is more of a recent published novel. Tress of the Emerald Sea was gifted to me a couple of months ago around Christmas by one of my close friends because they had read it and thought that I might appreciate it as well. So I recently got into reading it and I really enjoyed it. So this book was released on January 1st, 2023. It's been out for almost 3 years now, about 2.5. It is 365 pages long. It is also part of the Cosmere collection and secret works of Brandon Sanderson. Tress of the Emerald Sea is told in a third-person perspective with occasional switching to a first person due to being narrated by a character in the story called Hoyd. It is a story filled with adventure and friendship and kind of a little bit of romantic love. So I want to introduce some of the characters I will talk about first. So we will begin there with Tress. She is the protagonist of the story who kind of fears the spores, which I'll get into during the summary. The spores in her world, as well as having a great affinity and love for her friend Charlie. One of her characteristics is she has really unruly hair. Then we have Charlie. He is the Duke's son and lives on this island with Tress, and they are best friends / they kind of have fallen in love with each other. Then there is Huck, a talking rat. Anne, the quartermaster, who has comically terrible aim, but a love for guns and cannons. Fort is the deaf quartermaster and the chef on the Crow Song, the ship where a lot of this book takes place. Soleil is the helmswoman. I might be pronouncing her name wrong. She's the one who kind of drives is the wrong word, but like drives the ship. She is the one at the wheel steering it through the spore seas. Then we have Captain Crow. She is the captain of the Crow's Song, the ship where a lot of the story takes place. Hoyd, the cabin boy and the narrator of our story. And then the antagonist would be like the sorceress who has kidnapped Charlie, which is what this story is about. This story begins with Tress living on this island / rock in the middle of the Verdant Sea. No one is allowed to leave the island except for like royal officials, that being Charlie and his father, the Duke. So the Duke takes Charlie off to go find Charlie a wife, and he comes back a year later without Charlie. So then Tress ends up escaping the island to go rescue Charlie from the sorceress because the Duke claims that the sorceress kidnapped Charlie. After Tress escapes, she ends up on one ship and she meets Huck, the talking rat, and then they end up on a different ship together, the Crow Song, which is where we meet these new characters and the story kind of really starts to pick up and take off. Tress earns her place on this new ship by becoming the ship's sprouter, and the sprouter is someone who handles spores and grows them to use as like an advantage for the ship. And Tress has a very big fear of spores, which you learn throughout the beginning of the story, but she starts to overcome this because she wants to earn her place and save her friend Charlie. So she begins to learn how to experiment with the spores. Her new friends, Fort, Anne, and Soleil, kind of all bond together to figure out how to overthrow Captain Crow because she is a big meanie, and they also decide they want to help Tress save her friend Charlie. Throughout the story, Tress also learns about the curses the sorceress puts upon people. Hoyd is actually one of the cursed, which is why the narration is a little bit funny in his voice because he's cursed and says some goofy stuff. Eventually, the crew is able to rid themselves of Captain Crow, and they sail through the Crimson Sea, which is the dangerous one, all the way up to the Midnight Sea, which is where the sorceress lives. And then Tress goes out on her own along with Huck, the talking rat, to kind of break into the sorceress's palace and save Charlie. There's a little trick going on in there, but Tress catches on to it. And you learn that the whole time, spoilers alert, because I haven't said that yet, but I'm assuming you know by now, Huck has been Charlie the whole time. Charlie has been Huck the whole time. The Huck, the talking rat, is Charlie, the Duke's son. The rest of the crew arrives shortly after to help save the day. Hoyd breaks his curse and helps defeat the sorceress, and the sorceress has been defeated. The king, you learn, you don't actually go see this scene, but it's told as part of like epilogue scene almost, that The king has granted them some changes in the government and rules because they have defeated this great enemy, the sorceress. And Tress and Charlie are able to spend time together. They go back home, Charlie becomes human again, and everyone is changed for the better. So moving into stuff about the plot, I really enjoyed this story. The world building was really interesting. I frequently will have some issues with fantasy world building because it seems so severe and confusing, but this was actually really easy to follow, as I even took a couple week-long break after beginning the book, and when I came back to it, I didn't feel like I had to restart or flip back to learn anything. It was all pretty self-explanatory and easy to follow. I really enjoyed learning about the world building with the spores and the seas and how the spores all do different things and people can overcome their fear of them and stuff. It was amazing. I really loved it. It was great world building. I did have a plot issue slightly through the book because there was a point where on the ship I felt like, great, okay, Tress is learning how to use spores, she's making friends, but what about Charlie? I feel like we're out here to help Charlie and we're not doing that at all. But in the end, it's one of those where looking so close to the picture, you need to take a step back to see the bigger picture. And I feel like that was definitely the case here. I really, really liked the ending, and I would definitely like to reread this someday to kind of try and pick up on the little sprinkles in there of different plot aspects that you don't pick up on in the beginning, and it all connects later. So it was artfully done. I just personally didn't catch it in the beginning. Normally, I will only talk about narrators with audiobooks since that's typically where it is, and narration is either just a regular third or first person in books for me. But because this one is a little bit different, it's narrated by a character in the story named Hoyd, as I mentioned before. At first, I kind of had a problem with this. Well, initially I thought it was funny, and then I began to have a problem because it felt like serious moments couldn't be taken seriously. But then I started to appreciate that not everything you read needs to be serious, and some stuff can be fun and lighthearted, like this fun adventure story. So I really started to appreciate that. I also learned that Hoyd narrates a couple different things, or at least occurs in a lot of the Cosmere works by Brandon Sanderson. He's a recurring character. I know he narrates Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, I believe, because I had looked up that book and happened to catch that Hoyd narrates it. So I am definitely looking forward to reading some more of the Cosmere novels Brandon Sanderson has written to catch a little glimpse of Hoyd in there because that was interesting. There's also a note at the end where Sanderson talks about his inclusion of Hoyd and why he wanted to write this book completely in Hoyd's voice and to give it a Princess Bride type of vibe as well as a whimsical fantasy vibe. And I think he executed that very beautifully. It was amazing and really interesting. I've never read a book like this where one of the characters in the story is narrating the story and it's switching between perspectives between lines. It was done pretty seamlessly, and I thought it was really creative since I've never encountered anything like this before. So I would definitely like to read something like this again for some fun. To recap some of my thoughts about this, I thought this was a very fun adventure fantasy book. It was definitely whimsical, like Brandon Sanderson stated he was going for with the vibe of this story. I'm really grateful to my friend for sending it to me. It was an easy to follow book. Like I said, I took a gap in reading, and when I came back to it, I was still fully able to understand everything in it. It is pretty clear, it's interesting, and while it does have the typical plot twist in a fantasy novel, I partly felt like I saw it coming, but at the same time didn't, because when I had initially thought that Charlie was Huck the Rat, I was like, there's no way, actually, that's too easy. And some stuff just felt like it didn't add up to me. It definitely has a feel of The Princess Bride. It doesn't follow it completely, of course, but it has that fun adventure fantasy feel. Thank you so much for watching my review of Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, and I hope to see you back here soon for some other fun reads I'll be reviewing. Thanks! Bye!